So welcome back. So we'll jump right in. We're going to talk about the Revelation 12 sign today, and we're going to talk about why it's important and why it's important for this time that we're in right now. So let's take a look at it. It's in Revelation 12. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. We'll jump down to verse 5. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God, and to his throne. So this paints a picture of what the sign is about. And September 23rd, 2017, this sign actually appeared in the heavens. I remember when I first read about it, it was NASA had a article, and I read it on their website, and that was the first time I was introduced to it. So anyway, we'll take a look at it in stellarium and take a look at the sign, and then we'll talk about it. So let's walk through the Revelation 12 sign. It actually begins on November 11, 2016, when Jupiter or the man-child enters the womb. So we start following it. And if you start counting the moons, not the first one because it's not a full moon cycle, but every moon after that, you can start counting the moons. And Jupiter is slowing down and going to retrograde motion. It speeds up and slows down again. It returns to its normal course. And as we get closer here, it ends up being 10 moon cycles. The moon takes 28 days to go through the constellations. 10 times 28 is 280. Gestation period of a baby is 40 weeks. 40 times 7 is 280 days as well. So here we have it here, Revelation 12 sign. September 23rd, 2017. And we have the woman clothed in the sun, the moon at her feet, travailing in birth. Jupiter just went through 40-week gestation period. And we'll take the artwork off, and we'll count the stars in the lion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stars in the lion, plus the 3, 1, 2, 3 is 12 stars to make the 12 stars for the crown above the Virgin's head, which completes the Revelation 12 sign. So why are we looking at stars? Is it biblical? Yes, absolutely. It is absolutely biblical. We are called to watch, and we're called to share what we find. So in Genesis, chapter 1, verse 14, the Bible says, "And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days, and for years." So right there, the 14th verse into the Bible, we're told about stars. And they're in the heavens, and they said they're for 4 things. Signs, seasons, days, and years. The very first thing was signs. So I think this is very important. And as we go through this study, that's the point I want to get across, is that we've lost something as Christians, and our ability to know the stars, because we don't watch it as much as we used to. We have television, internet, games. We just, hundreds of years ago, the stars was your late night show. You want something to do, you go outside and you can, enjoy the show. So we also have the wise men. They used the stars for signs too. They followed the star. I just want to read that. Matthew 2, verses 9 and 10. And when they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. So we know that the wise men used stars to find out great events, and there's another deeper story about that sign in particular. It has to do with the star called Regal, and it's in the Lion. And each constellation has a main star that's the constellation is built around, and the name of that main star drops hints towards the meaning of the constellation itself. And we'll get into that in a little bit. I also want to read from Job, chapter 38, verses 31 and 32. And it says, "Canst thou bind the sweet influences of the Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? Canst thou bring forth the Mazzaroth in his season, or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons?" So we have in Job talking about the Pleiades, Arcturus, and the bands of Orion. And those are all in our skies, and we could see them in this. They're called the same names today. And Job being one of the oldest, arguably one of the oldest books in the Bible. So it shows you how long they've retained their names. So the Mazzaroth is it means constellations. The Hebrew word for Mazzaroth, it actually translates to constellations. You could research the Mazzaroth if you look it up. There's a story of Christ, the Messiah, in the heavens, and it tells a story. The constellations all depict different aspects of that story, such as the Virgin. We have the Leo, the Lion of Judah, Aries, even the Taurus. In the Hebrew language, Taurus, the first letter of the alphabet is Aleph, and it's the ancient Hebrew symbol is it's like a shape of a bull, and Taurus is a bull. So it's all there, and there's a story there. You can look it up. It's really interesting. But I want to touch on some other aspects of what makes this sign so important. So we need to learn a bit of background about astronomy, and so that we can appreciate the magnitude of the Revelation 12 sign. And it's amazing that we actually live in a time where we just witnessed it not too long ago. So you'll discover that the constellations tell the story of Christ. The constellations are fixed stars, and if you've ever heard the phrase of connecting the dots, you might guess where that phrase came from, because when you draw a line to those, it creates the constellation itself. And the groups of the fixed stars create an image or a logo, and they have the names for each one. Stars used to be very important. Back in the day, a captain of a ship needed to be able to navigate by the stars. And the Big Dipper, which is technically not a constellation on its own, but it's part of a bigger constellation called Ursa Major, or the Greater Bear. Ursa Minor is the smaller of the two bears, but the Big Dipper is part of that big constellation. And you could use the Big Dipper as a celestial clock, and ship captains would use that to tell time at night. And they could navigate with the stars. And it's ships were very expensive. A king normally would own them and wouldn't give a ship to just anybody. They'd want to make sure the captain knew his stuff and wouldn't give it to just anybody that come along. They'd have to be very knowledgeable, probably training under another captain for many years to gain the knowledge. And I believe that us Christians, we have lost the knowledge of the stars, but we can learn it. We can. So I'm still continuing to learn. Just when you think you know a lot, you get deeper, and there's so much more to know. But it's good. The stars, I believe that the devil has tried to counterfeit its usage in the use of the zodiac, which I think has kept Christians from even wanting to get near looking at the stars. They're afraid they might be thinking they're doing astrology, which is not astronomy. And I would say don't be afraid to research the roots of astronomy, the biblical roots of it, and it's a lot of fun. So we have 88 constellations in the sky. 12 of them run along the elliptical, and that elliptical is like a pathway that all the lights, the wandering stars, will pass through. They go through it within 1 or 2 degrees, and they pass through all 12 constellations. And we get the ancient Greek word or term called planete, planete, or the Latin term planeta. It means to wander or a wanderer. There are 7 lights that do wander, and you can see them with the naked eye. You don't need a telescope or binoculars to be an astronomer, like a naked eye astronomer. And the lights are the moon, the sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. They're the 7 lights that we can follow with our eyes. We don't need any tools to do it except our eyes. You can use a tool such as Stellarium to look at them as well. The moon does the circuit of the elliptical in 28 days. The sun, Mercury, and Venus, 3-in-1 package. From observational astronomy, we can follow it. It's 12 months. It's 1 year. They stay together and they complete a circuit in 12 months. Mars is next, but I want to leave that to the end. Jupiter is 12 years. And Jupiter kind of represents Christ in the stories because of what Jupiter looks like and what it says in Isaiah 53:5. And I'll just read that. Get it open here. Isaiah 53:5. But he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities, and the chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. So if you look at the picture, you can see the stripes would be from the whip and the wound from the spear. It really does represent Christ, and takes 12 years to go through the 12 constellations. You're thinking of the 12 disciples, the 12 tribes of Israel. The next light we have is Saturn. It takes 29 and a half years approximately to go through all 12. And if you look at Saturn through a telescope, not a very high power, just a regular telescope, it actually looks like an eyeball. And I call it, personally, I've been calling it like the witness, because it witnesses things happen. And it's a patient witness because it goes slow. So I'm going to go back to Mars. It's the one that doesn't traverse kind of very equally, where like the moon goes 28 days, and a 28 is like 7 times 4, and 7 is a number we see it all over the place, like the 7 lights. We see it 7 everywhere in the Bible. So Mars has a number. If you look it up, the number, it says 687, and it's it's hard to grasp that, and I've followed it myself. I find it goes through a 7 year cycle where it takes like 700 days for 6 years, 700, and I'm just being vague, but it's anywhere between 706 days to 712 days for 6 years, and then because there's a retrograde in there, and then the 1 year that it goes through, it doesn't retrograde, and it's only 524. So if you add them all up and you divide it by, like, to find the mean, it ends up with like 686, but it's so close to that 666 number, and the star is red, and the history that Mars has with wars and signs in the heavens when these wars start. Mars seems to be the depiction of a bad sign. If it's involved, it's usually war or another bad type of omen. So that's why I left it for last, because it doesn't break evenly around the elliptical, and it just seems to kind of be so close to that 666 number, and that I thought, yeah, I kind of call it the enemy when I look at this stuff. So so let's talk now about the Revelation 12 sign, now that you have a bit of a background of the lights, the 7 lights we're looking at, and the numbers behind it. So let's look at the odds of these 7 lights, and as it pertains to the Revelation 12 sign. And the odds itself, if you work them out, and you can do that, if you break it down in the variables into chunks, and then you have to multiply them together. But it comes out to 1 in 100 million, or very close to 1 in 100 million, that this sign would take place. And I can break this down a little bit so you can grasp a little bit of how do you create that number. And you have the sun going through the 12 constellations. The sun can't be in every constellation at once, so the chances of the sun being in one constellation at any one time is 8.3. Just take 1 divide 1 by 12, and you get 8.3%. The moon is the same, where it's could be 1 in 912, so it's the same, 8.3. So in this sign of the Revelation 12 sign, it calls for the moon to be at the feet. So that's more specific. So let's break the constellation into 3 chunks. We'll call it top of the Virgin, the middle part of the Virgin, and the bottom part of the Virgin. So we'll take the 8.3 and we'll divide that by 3, and you end up with 2.7% chance that the moon will be in the bottom foot section. And then when you take the odds of the sun and the moon together to be in the same constellation at the same time in the Virgin, it actually works out that there's only 1 day of the year that the sun and the moon at the feet are there together. So you have 1 chance every year to get Jupiter to retrograde previously for the 40-week gestation period in the womb, and then you have to have 3 wandering stars float into the lion to create this sign. So it doesn't happen, and we've had 2,000 days since the book of Revelation was written. 2,000 days because the sun and moon only happens at the 1 day. 2,000 days to make that happen, and it hasn't happened. And the chance of it even happening, it could be millions of years for this to happen, but it happened, and it happened now. So we can ask some questions like, why did it happen now? Well, if you take a look at some other big things that have happened in near history, and I'm going to say 1948 is pretty near history comparative to like millions of years, or comparative even to thousands of years. Israel became a nation in 1 day in 1948. That's a big deal because they weren't a nation for many, almost 2,000 years. And so they became a nation, and almost 70 years later, we have this sign. So it's, to me and to a lot of others, this sign is a big deal. Just the odds alone of it happening are like, for a pun, it's astronomical, right? So it's quite amazing. So, all right. So out of the 7 possible lights that are up there to follow, the Revelation 12 sign requires 6 of these lights to create the sign: the moon, the sun, and then you have Jupiter, and then 3 other wanderers for 6. So we're missing only 1 light to. So who was it? It was missing. It was Saturn was missing. And this is kind of segueing into my next video, where I'm going to show you how the Revelation 12 sign led me, by following the man-child, Jesus, Jupiter, following Jupiter right into 30 moon cycles later, led me to the first seal. And Saturn, believe it or not, Saturn was on its way. When this is happening, it's just outside of the constellation of the rider on a horse with a bow. So 30 moon cycles, Saturn moves into position. It's there as the witness to witness the first seal. So that kind of concludes the Revelation 12 sign, and some background and depth in it, and how amazing this sign really is, and how a rare event that we in our lifetime lived and to see it. If you missed it for the real sign, you can go on Stellarium, and I just showed it to you too, but you can do it yourself, and you can follow Jupiter to the other signs. And I made another video, but I want to break it down. I want to get in deeper detail of in depth of how amazing each one of these signs are. And if the Revelation 12 sign was a 1 in 100 million, when you add these other seals in a row, the 4 seals in a row, the numbers are just, it becomes almost impossible. Like exponentially, the odds are just like impossible, but yet you see them and they match up. They match up with current events and that time. Anyway, I'll leave it at that for now, and tune in to the next video, and I'll show you the seals. God bless you. If you don't have Jesus, yes, please consider accepting Jesus into your life. Become a follower of Jesus Christ, because time is short. It really is. And yeah, the end of my last video, I kind of walked through how it's kind of like the ABCs of salvation. We admit that we're sinners, and we believe on Jesus, and we confess with our mouth that Jesus is Lord. So anyway, I love you guys. Thanks for stopping by and having a look, and I'll try to get the next video up as soon as I can, and we'll talk then.